thanks for being here. We are very lucky to have Sari here to come and show us some of the things that they've been doing at LA. So I will try to get through my bit nice and quick so we can hear a few examples. But what we're talking about is this 30-minute city, and I do love that term because I mean it's probably you've heard it being said a lot recently, especially amongst politicians and so on. But it's sort of jumping the gun a bit. I mean, in order to have a 30-minute city, we need to first build a smart community. Because, let's be honest, no one wants to live 30 minutes to unsafe streets and unaffordable housing, or basically a commute that gets you from Crapville to Dodgy Town or something like that. So let's fix our communities first, and then the 30-minute city will follow. And we all want the same thing. Right, all these communities, we all want these to be able to achieve these aspirations. But like I said, we need to build that strong, smart government, smart community, which will eventually lead to that 30-minute city, that end goal. Now these aspirations that we all have, these shouldn't be of any surprise to you. But what we really want is to be able to turn them into actionable, real-world initiatives. And they're all common challenges, right? They're all things that we all deal with. Things like the need to reduce homelessness and use less energy. But we need to be able to turn these into measurable goals and strategies, something to sort of aspire to that end game. But before we can even get to that point, let's take a step back even further. And I think this is where a lot of people trip up. They try to run ahead too quickly, and they forget that really strong foundation that needs to be built to begin with. A foundation that GIS, this is where you guys play the role, and it should be at the heart of it. We have these 4 key components. What we really want is to unite people's efforts through agile processes, using open data, real-time data, and integrated technologies. And I want you to think about that data as being the glue that holds these things together. And I think what people often forget is in order to be a modern government, you really need a modern GIS. More than 80% of our data has a spatial component, if not more. So running ahead to try to be smart can often trip over if you haven't thought about that solid foundation to begin with. And if we talk about the characteristics of a smart government, we're talking about having forward-thinking leadership. Right, these rely on facts, okay? They have measurable strategies that are people-centric, and that's really key. Data-driven decision-making, now we're talking about having evidence to determine the actions. Again, very, very key. Let's not just go with our gut feel. Collaboration across departments. Now I'm talking about breaking down silos, but I think what we often forget, we can get really stuck in our little bubble. Initiatives affect people across the departments. So if we take an example, affordable housing, that affects planning. It affects infrastructure. It affects community development. It's not just one department's problem. These things affect many departments. So it's more and more important that we're actually collaborating. And we'll see some great examples of where that's happened in LA. Now, real-time awareness, I mentioned that it's mandatory now. Real-time data is no longer a luxury. And community engagement. Now, absolutely, I'm talking about open data, and we'll go into that a little bit more. But I'm also talking about that two-way interaction. Interaction with your community. Use that department. I'm going to call them a department. That public that's there. Use them. But also provide them data with context. I think that's something that we sometimes forget about. Open data, providing the raw data, but also providing data with context that will link back to the progress of getting to those aspirations and those initiatives that were set, and having that transparency all the way through. Now I'm going to break it down to a really simplified maturity model. And this is just my way of trying to simplify the whole situation, really. But I like to think about it as an ad hoc government is a government that works in a very traditional way. So sort of dealing with things as they come up, working really reactively with quick fixes. That'll do, move on. But then you move on to being a managed government. And that's the point where that we've started to notice that there's some need for improvement. Perhaps you've implemented some automation for repetitive tasks. You've started to break down the silos. Really key steps to getting to that final optimized point. That's that end game that we all want to get to. We all want to get to that optimized level. But in this whole model, I think what people really forget is that I think they underestimate the positive impact that GIS can actually play on this roadmap and getting us to that final point. Now you can see that at level of engagement and level of transparency, this is a linear relationship. You can't have one without the other. So if you want to get to that point, we really need to be focusing our attention to all those things we just mentioned, transparency, open data, and so on. To take this one step further, I'm actually going to just run through a really quick example. This could probably just be me venting, but it's something I think might resonate a little bit. So this is a picture of some graffiti near my parents' place. And I've been looking at it for at least a year, I'd say. But the government, and every time I look at it, I do sort of think, well, I should probably report that. It just drives me nuts. But every time I think of that, I look to that council and realise that they are what I would call an ad hoc government. There's really no easy way for me to communicate with them. It would involve calling customer service and during business hours, and I'm Gen Y, I just can't be bothered with anything like that. But recently I found out that they had actually moved to a managed government, which is really exciting, right? They provided me with a web app to allow me to make a report like this. So it's opening up that two-way engagement, using that community that's out there and have the eyes and ears on everything. A couple of flaws though. So there's a street text box there. It's a free text box. No validation, not compulsory. So the only parts that were compulsory were my name and my phone number. And turns out I could totally submit a location that was nothing to do with that council. Some poor person is looking for my graffiti report now. I do apologise to that council, but I just wanted to find out if that was the case. So they'd made that progress, but they'd implemented a real quick fix. So good, but what I'm hoping for is something like the City of Gold Coast. This is what these guys have provided. An app that's geocentric, that understands the community, the people, and the way that we now interact. Right? We all have our phones, we're all ready to engage. Provide us with the tools that we can feed you that information. A really quick app immediately takes my location and lets me report that information in seconds. That's what I really want. You might be saying, why is this important? Such a little problem. Just a little bit of graffiti, just get over it, drive a different way, whatever it might be. But I want you to think about this on a bigger scale. So think about little graffiti as being one of those little brown boxes. And every little bit of information that we can bring together, we're able to sprout a story and insights that we didn't even realise were there. I think the importance of all this is what I'm trying to get at is the fact that the more data we share, the more proactive we can actually be and better understanding our community. We hopefully can discover mind-blowing insights as well. Think of it like a puzzle. So every piece of a puzzle you put together, the clearer that picture becomes. Essentially what you're doing is you're minimizing guesswork and therefore minimizing risk. And the kind of risks I'm talking about can even be something like this. Right? This is something that actually happened. A bridge collapsed during peak hour in Minneapolis and killing a number of people. Now, these are the sorts of things that we really want to avoid, and believe it or not, GIS can be there to help with those sorts of things. So at the time, Jack Dangerman, our founder, he actually went and spoke to the governor of Minnesota, and he showed him the power of GIS and what it could really do in being a decision-making tool. He showed him a map that had all the bridges, coded there in green. Added another piece of the puzzle, and he showed bridge conditions. So it might be a little bit difficult to see there, but red being the weakest, yellow through to green being the strongest bridges. Add another piece of the puzzle. We brought in the data of traffic volume, and suddenly you see these targets immediately emerge onto the map. It's quite clear where infrastructure investments should be going in. But the fourth map he showed him showed where currently investments were occurring in infrastructure. And as you can see, the green dollar signs are sort of not quite hitting the right spots there. This is the power of GIS and storytelling through this common language. Because I think the raw story, it was always in there in the data, but it's the maps that ended up providing the insight. And that leads me straight into open data and the importance of that. Now, I'm going to run through a real quick, sort of slightly tech bit here. But what's great with ArcGIS Open Data is it's just a free component on your ArcGIS online account. Very, very easy to get up and running and allowing people to consume that raw information and sprout a story of their own that you can also benefit from. The steps that I'm talking about, very, 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 very simple. In ArcGIS Online, you're going to enable the capabilities. You're going to set up some groups and share some data into those groups, similar to as we saw in the distributed collaboration in the plenary. Configure an open data site, just the look and the feel of it, then flick that switch to make it public. In terms of the architecture, I don't want to go into this in too much detail. If you'd like to talk afterwards, please come and see me. But essentially what's happening here is we're bringing in shapefiles and data from your desktop to the hosted environment, ArcGIS Online, through the groups, onto the site, and at the other end, people can access that data in a number of different formats. Again, we saw this in the plenary as well. And worth pointing out that there are a number of you that probably already have an open data site, maybe with other, through other portals such as CCAN is a popular one. ArcGIS Open Data works side by side with these as well, so it can easily be set up. You can also consider a hybrid solution if you've already got an existing ArcGIS server, so bringing in your map and feature services as well. And these are one of the first, the really important steps to getting to that ultimate goal that we talked about, and providing your smart community. So, a couple of quick screenshots of what that might look like. Here's my ArcGIS Online administration settings. Big green button, you can't miss it. Enable open data, and you're straight into configuring the site. Very simple GUI, right? We're talking about setting up the name, perhaps setting the extent that you want to have when people get in there. Simple capabilities as well, but really important and useful ones, such as enabling a local projection for people to download data with. The default is WGS 84 with ArcGIS Online, but you can also have your own local projection in there too. And within less than an hour, you can be up and running like City of Hobart has here, providing that first step towards connecting with your community and allowing people to really get in there and find the insights that you might not have the resources or time to do. So with that, I just want to make a quick mention to ArcGIS Hub. And it's a new product that's coming very soon, hopefully by the end of this year. This is taking that extra step of allowing that two-way engagement that we talked about. So ArcGIS Open Data is providing the raw data. ArcGIS Hub will allow your community to become a named user and create data of their own, apps of their own. And also for you to provide your data with context like we talked about, showing the progress towards those initiatives and goals that you've set. This really was inspired by the work done by City of LA. So I think it's a perfect opportunity to get Sari to come up and show a few examples of what LA has done and the incredible work that they've done. So Sari, would you like to come up and show us some of your stuff? Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Okay, so we just have a couple minutes here, but I wanted to give you a sense of a bit more into the examples that I didn't get to touch on this morning. So as Celine introduced the 30-minute city, for us it's really about building a responsive and dynamic city. So Mayor Garcetti, the current mayor of Los Angeles, requested a dashboard. Now, dashboards don't always work. People don't always know how to use them effectively, but this has been an incredibly fruitful dashboard for us in the city. It's a place where he can introduce all of the KPIs that he cares about and easily see just red or green whether we are on track or off track, giving you this beautiful bird's eye view of the city, and it's completely public. So as an approach that we've taken in Los Angeles, we're very committed to sharing all of our insights with the city and its residents, keeping ourselves more accountable. You can even dive into some of those cross-functional priority areas that I mentioned earlier. For example, we talked a little bit about service request data and some of the graffiti removal that Celine so wished that council would do. And so here we use all of the data that the community provides to us, and we then present it back to them both in raw data formats on our open data portal, as well as this engaging visual dashboard that has a spatial component and also some interactive ways for you to interpret the information, showing you just the way our community engages with us. So a lot of people are still using call-in centers and calling in, but we also have a mobile app that's been growing and people are using it more frequently. So that just gives you a preview. This is all open, so you can go and browse yourselves, but there are multiple little focus areas to explore. Another thing that we're really passionate about is tracking progress and showing our residents exactly how we're doing that. A time series map is a really effective and easy way to do so. So here you can see the mayor's goal of paving 2,400 lane miles each year. And this is how he keeps himself accountable. We have a timeline here that shows you some of the milestones that we've reached in making this data integrated and spitting it back out into the community within this map. So there's a live feed that's going into this map, and it's updated. Here you can see it's updated until just last month. So all of this data is another way for us to engage and show taxpayers how we're keeping our streets up to par. Finally, we've been working a lot on integrating different departments within Los Angeles and showing them how you can connect from researchers to actual policy and use some cutting-edge spatial stats to do so. So we started an engagement with a local university in last August, so a year ago. And what we did with them was work on how to mitigate crime in Los Angeles. We have over 7 years of open data around crime incidents. And we looked at the most recent 4 years of data. We created 2 time periods for them to compare. And with that data, they created for us this very in-depth network of where streets are experiencing rises in crime, decreases in crime, and chronic crime. It's a way for us to understand how to best deliver services and create a holistic strategy for making our community safer. So then with that data, we didn't just want it to sit on a shelf. All of those spatial layers and analysis were served up into a very large group on the Geo Hub that includes the researchers themselves, as well as my team, the data team, and a few other groups in the city that are using this data now and applying it to their own operations. So here's an example of how we're applying that analysis. The Gain Reduction and Youth Development Foundation is interested in deploying some new resources in this council district. To give you a sense of size, Los Angeles is quite large, so this is just one council district out of 15 in the city. So naturally, they don't really know where to focus on, and we used the data to help them prioritize. We created an index that included some of the factors that are most important to them, as well as the crime analysis that the researchers completed for us in 2 semesters of work. And then we developed this index that goes from low to high, and now they're able to really focus on a specific area. This is a group that's very averse to data, so I'll tell you that, and they're loving this. It's so exciting for them to be able to visualize and create impact within their community. Their field teams are now able to pull this up on their phone and see qualitative information about a specific little region that they're working on. They can also find more information, like historical data, on parks that are part of some programming. We have parks that we keep open at night. And so they can get, let me zoom in here so I get the right pop-up. They can get historical data to see when and where these parks were open and part of this program. And just another thing here, all of this is using Arcade, the new expression language in the pop-up. So a great way to also embed charts. Everything here is dynamic. So again, this is a group that's never used mapping before and can't get enough of it. And we have a lot of use cases and are actually now meeting regularly to show this tool to other departments that are interested in a more street-centered strategy for their operations. So just a couple examples there. I'm not sure if we have time for questions. Okay. Yeah.
Hold on, we'll just get a mic to come to you.
Sorry, I was just saying, do you feed that information to the police department? Or do
We
they
do. The police department was one of the clients for this project. So we had researchers that worked with us, and basically as the data team, we were the conduit that brought the data and the strategy together. Our clients were the LAPD as well as the Mayor's Office of Public Safety. But again, all of this data on crime incidents is actually coming from the police department. They're just creating a lot of data that they don't get to use because of capacity issues. So it's a great way for us to bring in kind of cutting edge research and show them the value of their insights.
Do we have any more questions?
Mm-hmm.
What else is on the horizon for you guys using mapping and GIS and all that kind of thing?
Cool. Yeah, good question. So we're working a lot on just building up capacity within the city. So like I said, our data teams work really hard across the city to collect high quality data and then make it public. So we want to repay the favor and kind of work with them. Something really great that we did this summer is bring in a group of 10 fellows from the community, so in local universities from undergraduate degrees up until doctoral students who are really interested in data science and applying it to a city. So we created a data science academy within the city, and they just completed their projects with their department. So when I return to Los Angeles, I'll be reviewing all of those findings, but they've been working on building out mini projects like these within the departments they've been assigned to, and we're looking to create a more kind of institutional program like that in our city. So it's a great way to engage people who are just hungry for data and hungry for application. And a lot of them have a very multidisciplinary background. We have some designers, some app developers, and some more traditional statisticians working with us. So really infusing our departments with that energy, I think that's where we're headed. And then we're doing a lot more training internally to get data managers aware of all of the tools that they can be using to analyze their information.
All right, so we might cut off questions there. As I mentioned earlier, please feel free to ask either presenters questions at the end of today, or if you see them walking around in our tech hub later on, they're more than happy to answer any questions that you have.